Welcome to the Haunting Horror channel. Please subscribe, like this video, give this video a like and write a comment. Thank you and enjoy watching. The crimson glow of the developing tray painted everything an infernal red. I squinted through the dim orange filter of my safe light, the familiar scent of fixer clinging to the air. The figure in the print before me blurred, a lonely silhouette swallowed by the vastness of a city park. It was a decent capture, technically sound, yet staring at it triggered a gnawing emptiness in my gut, a feeling that had become my unwelcome companion in the darkroom lately. Just another pretty picture, I muttered, running a frustrated hand through my hair. The rhythmic tick of the timer mocked my despair. I tossed the print into the discard bin, joining the mountain of its failed brethren. Each rejection gnawed at the fragile belief I still clung to, that somewhere within me resided a spark of artistic merit. A crumpled envelope on the counter caught my eye. Dread coiled in my stomach. The familiar logo of Insight magazine, a beacon of hope for aspiring photographers like myself, stared back accusingly. With trembling fingers, I ripped open the envelope. The rejection letter was short, a clinical dismissal disguised as polite encouragement. "We appreciate you submitting your work," it began, the rest blurring into a meaningless jumble of words. I squeezed my eyes shut, the sting of rejection a familiar ache. This wasn't just about Insight, it was about the endless cycle of self-doubt that plagued my creativity. The harsh buzz of the timer startled me back to reality. I pulled out the next print, a street scene bustling with life. This one was promising, a dynamic interplay of light and shadow. But as I peered closer, the life seemed to drain from the image, replaced by a hollowness that mirrored my own. The creak of the door hinge broke the silence. Amelia's silhouette appeared in the doorway, her face bathed in the orange glow from the safe light. Her smile, usually as bright as the flash on my camera, seemed muted tonight. "Working late again?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I forced a smile, trying to hide the turmoil within. "Just another dud. Seems like." Amelia walked over and peered at the discarded prints. Her brow furrowed slightly as she studied the photo. "It's beautiful, Ethan," she said, her voice soft. "The way you captured the movement in the city, it's like a symphony in concrete and steel." I looked at her surprised. "You really think so?" "Absolutely," she said, reaching out to touch my cheek. "You just need to believe in yourself a little more." Her touch sent a warmth through me, momentarily pushing back the cold grip of self-doubt. But even in the dim light, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different in her eyes. A flicker of an emotion I couldn't quite place, a shadow lingering at the edges of her irises. "Maybe you need a change of scenery," Amelia suggested. "Take your camera for a walk tomorrow. Clear your head." I nodded, a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe she was right. Stepping out of my comfort zone, away from the confines of the darkroom, might just be what I needed to capture that elusive spark I craved. "Yeah," I said, a newfound determination settling in my voice. "Maybe tomorrow will be different." The crisp morning air stunned my cheeks as I wandered through the bustling streets, camera slung across my shoulder. Amelia's words echoed in my mind. "Clear your head." Maybe she was right. Stepping outside the familiar darkness of the darkroom felt like venturing into uncharted territory. The city, usually a blur of activity, seemed to unfold before me in new ways. A lone vendor huddled beneath a faded awning, his eyes holding a lifetime of unspoken stories. A couple argued on a park bench, their intertwined bodies contorted in a silent dance of anger and despair. Each fleeting moment held the potential for a story, a raw emotion waiting to be captured. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A young woman stood across the street, Her head bowed, long dark hair cascading down her back. Her posture radiated a profound sadness, a weight dragging her down. As she looked up, our eyes met. For a fleeting moment, time seemed to stand still. There was a depth of sorrow in her eyes, a well of unshed tears that mirrored the emptiness I'd been struggling to capture in my photos. But unlike the hollowness in my attempts, her sadness felt real, raw, and undeniably beautiful. An involuntary gasp escaped my lips. The woman glanced around, startled, then quickly turned and disappeared into the throng of people. My heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and confusion. That look, that emotion, that was what I had been searching for. In that brief exchange, I felt a spark ignite within me, a creative fire that had been dormant for too long. With renewed purpose, I raised my camera and began to scan the crowd. But the woman was gone, vanished like a wisp of smoke. Frustration gnawed at me. I had stumbled upon something powerful, something that could potentially break me out of my rut, and I had let it slip away. Dejected, I decided to head back towards the studio. As I rounded a corner, a familiar figure caught my eye. Amelia stood across the street, talking with a group of friends. Relief washed over me, momentarily eclipsing the disappointment of missing my chance. But as I approached, something felt off. Amelia's smile seemed strained, her usual vibrancy dimmed. When she saw me, a flicker of something akin to fear crossed her face before she schooled her expression into a warm greeting. "Ethan, how'd your walk go?" she asked, her voice a touch too bright. "Actually, pretty good," I lied, not wanting to dwell on my frustration. "Saw some interesting things." We walked together for a while, her conversation laced with a forced cheerfulness. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that the spark I had seen earlier in her eyes had been replaced by a dull ache. "Are you okay, Amelia?" I finally asked, concern creasing my brow. She stopped walking and turned to face me. Her gaze held a flicker of something I couldn't place, an unsettling emptiness that sent shivers down my spine. For a moment, I saw a ghost of the sadness I had witnessed earlier reflected in her eyes. "Of course I'm okay," she said a touch too quickly. "Just a little tired, that's all." I wanted to believe her, but a seed of doubt had been planted. There was something going on with Amelia, and the fear that it was somehow connected to the unsettling emotions I craved to capture gnawed at me. Amelia's forced smile haunted me as I unpacked my camera bag back in the darkroom. The fleeting encounter with the sad-eyed woman resonated with an eerie intensity. It was as if Amelia, too, was struggling with a hidden well of sorrow, a connection I couldn't quite grasp. The frustration of losing track of the woman on the street fueled my determination. I pored over photography books, searching for inspiration. Technical perfection seemed irrelevant now. I craved to capture emotions, the raw vulnerability I had glimpsed in those two pairs of eyes. Days turned into a blur of frantic exploration. I stalked the city streets, camera at the ready, becoming a silent observer of human interactions. Joyful laughter of children at a playground, the weary resignation of an elderly couple sitting on a park bench. I captured them all, but none resonated with the intensity I desired. Disappointment gnawed at me. Was I chasing a phantom? Was the sadness I sought to capture merely a figment of my overactive imagination? Exhausted and defeated, I returned to the darkroom. The familiar scent of chemicals felt more like a suffocating cloak than a source of comfort. Just as I contemplated packing it in for the night, a knock on the door startled me. "Ethan." It was Amelia, her voice sounding unusually timid. "Come in," I mumbled, pushing aside a pile of discarded prints. Amelia peeked inside, her brow furrowed in concern. "You haven't been sleeping, have you?" I let out a tired sigh. Just struggling with some creative stuff. That's all. She hesitated for a moment, then walked further into the room, her gaze falling on the discarded prints scattered across the work table. Can I see? I shrugged, feeling a pang of self-consciousness. Picking up a few prints, she studied them thoughtfully. They're good, she said finally, her voice soft. Technically perfect, like always. That's not enough, I muttered, a wave of frustration washing over me. I want more, Amelia. I want to capture the soul, the real emotions people carry inside. Maybe, she said hesitantly, you're looking in the wrong place. The unexpected statement caught me off guard. What do you mean? I asked, surprised by a hint of defiance in her voice. She met my gaze, a flicker of something akin to desperation passing through her eyes. You capture everyone else's emotions, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Why not try capturing mine? The air crackled with unspoken tension. The sadness I had glimpsed earlier was now a roiling storm in her eyes, threatening to spill over. Was this the same Amelia I knew, full of sunshine and laughter? Or was there something deeper, something darker, lurking beneath the surface? Suddenly, a chilling realization dawned on me. Perhaps Amelia wasn't the source of inspiration I thought she was. Perhaps the key to capturing genuine emotions wasn't observing others, but confronting the darkness that might be closer than I imagined. Amelia's words hung heavy in the air, the weight of unspoken emotions pressing down on us. The vibrant woman I knew seemed to be fading, replaced by someone shrouded in a veil of sadness. A spark flickered within me, not of artistic inspiration, but of a chilling fear. What's wrong, Amelia? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What's going on with you? She turned away, her back stiff, shoulders tense. For a moment, there was only silence, punctuated by the rhythmic dripping of water from the developing tank. Then, in a voice choked with emotion, she spoke. I don't feel like myself anymore, Ethan, she confessed. It's like the world's lost its color, its vibrancy. Everything seems dull, muted. My heart ached for her. The Amelia I knew was a beacon of light, her laughter contagious, her smile a source of warmth. This despondency seemed alien to her spirit. Have you talked to anyone about this? I asked gently. A doctor, maybe. She shook her head, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's like a shadow's crept into my heart, slowly draining the joy from everything. As she spoke, I couldn't help but notice a change in her eyes. The vibrant blue that had always captivated me seemed clouded, a flicker of despair swirling within their depths. It was the same raw emotion I had witnessed on the streets, the very emotion I so desperately craved to capture. But now, staring into Amelia's eyes, the thrill of the chase was replaced by a chilling unease. The sadness I sought to portray felt different when reflected in the eyes of someone I cared for deeply. Was my pursuit of artistic expression leading me down a dangerous path? Maybe you don't need a photographer, I ventured, my voice hesitant. Maybe you need someone to listen, someone to help you find the light again. Amelia looked at me, a flicker of hope sparking in her eyes. Do you think you can do that? I took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility settling onto my shoulders. I'll try, I promised, reaching out to take her hand in mine. Let's start by putting down the camera for a bit. Maybe a walk in the park, some fresh air, can help chase away those shadows. A faint smile touched her lips, a flicker of the Amelia I knew returning. Maybe you're right, she agreed. Maybe the answer doesn't lie in capturing others' emotions, but in understanding my own. As we stepped out of the dark room and into the warm glow of the afternoon sun, a sense of unease lingered within me. The desire to capture genuine emotion hadn't vanished, but it had transformed. Perhaps the key wasn't in exploiting sadness, but in fostering hope, in understanding the human spirit's ability to overcome darkness. And maybe, just maybe, by helping Amelia rediscover her light, I might find my own creative spark rekindled. Days blurred into weeks as I devoted myself to Amelia's well-being. The darkroom remained untouched, the pungent smell of chemicals a distant memory. Walks in the park, evenings spent curled up with a good book, whispered conversations under the starlit sky, these became our routine. Slowly, a faint glimmer returned to Amelia's eyes. Laughter, though infrequent, no longer felt forced. The vibrancy of her spirit, dimmed for so long, seemed to be flickering back to life. Yet, a shadow persisted. Fleeting moments of despondency clouded her gaze, a reminder of the darkness she still battled. These glimpses filled me with a chilling dread, a nagging fear that the source of her sorrow wasn't something external, but something far more insidious. One evening, as we sat on our porch swing, watching the fiery hues of sunset paint the sky, Amelia spoke in a hushed tone. "Do you ever feel like you're being watched, Ethan?" Her question sent a tremor through me. The unsettling feeling had been gnawing at me too, particularly during the nights when Amelia's sleep was plagued by nightmares. Was it just the lingering anxieties of her condition, or something more sinister? Sometimes, I admitted cautiously, like there's something unseen lurking in the shadows. She nodded, a shiver running down her spine. "I feel it too. It's a presence, a cold weight that presses down on me, especially in the dark." The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. The fear that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted in a torrent of questions. "When did this start? Did it happen before you started feeling off?" Amelia's brow furrowed in concentration. "Now that you mention it," she mused, "I think it began subtly, a fleeting sense of being followed. But it's gotten stronger lately, a suffocating pressure that steals my breath." My mind raced, piecing together the unsettling puzzle. The sadness in Amelia's eyes, the unseen presence she felt. Could it all be connected? Was there some malevolent force feeding on her despair, draining her light? "We need to talk to someone," I said urgently, a cold determination settling in my voice. "A doctor, a therapist, anyone who can help us understand what's happening." Amelia's eyes widened with fear. "No, Ethan. Doctors won't understand. This is different." Her fear was palpable, tinged with a strange conviction. Despite my own apprehension, I knew I couldn't ignore her anxieties. A more unconventional approach might be necessary, one that delved beyond the realm of traditional medicine. "All right," I conceded, placing a hand on hers. "Then we'll find someone who can help. We'll find answers together." But as I looked into Amelia's eyes, a new fear crept into my heart. The flicker of despair I had been battling to extinguish seemed to be returning. And this time it was laced with a hint of something else. Defiance, even malice. Was I winning the battle against the darkness? Or was it simply shifting form, preparing for a new attack? The once vibrant photos that adorned our walls now felt like hollow shells, mocking my artistic aspirations. The dark room remained a mausoleum of forgotten dreams, the silence broken only by the insistent gnawing of unease. Amelia's condition had taken a turn for the worse. The flicker of returning light had been extinguished, replaced by a profound darkness that clouded her eyes. The unseen presence she felt seemed to have solidified its grip. Sleep had become a distant memory, replaced by nights filled with tormented tossing and turning, punctuated by strangled gasps and panicked whispers. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent shivers down her spine. One morning, I awoke to find the bed empty. Panic surged through me, a cold dread tightening its grip around my heart. Rushing downstairs, I found Amelia huddled in a corner of the living room, her eyes wide with terror. "There you are," I exclaimed, relief washing over me. "What happened? Are you all right?" She looked up at me, her gaze distant, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. "It was here," she whispered, her words barely audible. "The presence. It was closer last night, stronger. I could almost see it." A shiver ran down my spine. The fear she felt was palpable, contagious. My mind raced for an explanation, a logical solution. But everything pointed towards something beyond the realm of reason. The unconventional approach I had mentioned to Amelia now seemed like our only option. Researching online, I stumbled upon a local bookstore specializing in the occult. The proprietor, a woman with eyes that held a lifetime of unspoken stories, listened intently to my tale. "It sounds like a case of psychic vampirism," she said finally, her voice raspy with age. "A malevolent entity feeding on your loved one's emotional energy." A wave of nausea washed over me. Psychic vampires. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. But looking at Amelia's pale face and haunted eyes, I knew this was no fiction. The woman handed me a small, worn book titled "Ward Against the Unseen." It contained rituals and techniques to cleanse a space and protect oneself from psychic attacks. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was all I had. That night, I performed the ritual outlined in the book, chanting words that felt foreign on my tongue, drawing protective symbols in the air. Amelia watched me with a mixture of skepticism and a flicker of hope. As I finished, a heavy silence descended upon the room. For a moment, I dared to believe it had worked. Then a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, coming from Amelia's room. Rushing in, I found her thrashing on the bed, her screams turning into incoherent mumbles. Panic flooded me. Was the ritual failing? Or was it making things worse? "Get out," she shrieked, her voice distorted, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "It's not her. It's me." The words echoed in the room, a horrifying realization dawning on me. The darkness I had been fighting wasn't something external, feeding on Amelia. The darkness was Amelia, and it was fighting back. Amelia's words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. The presence I'd been battling wasn't some unseen entity leeching her energy. It was her. The darkness I'd glimpsed in her eyes had solidified, twisting her from the vibrant woman I knew into a vessel of something monstrous. Panic threatened to consume me, but the sight of Amelia thrashing on the bed, her screams echoing with a chilling inhumanity, spurred me into action. I had to do something, anything, to break her free from whatever was controlling her. Rushing to her side, I grasped her shoulders, my voice firm despite the tremor running through me. "Amelia, fight it. Don't let it take over." My words seemed to have no effect. Her eyes, once filled with warmth and love, now glowed with an unnatural light, a cold, malevolent intelligence peering out from their depths. A guttural growl erupted from her throat, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Desperation clawed at me. The book from the occult store offered no guidance for this situation. Thinking back to the cleansing ritual, I grabbed a handful of sage from the shelf and lit it, the pungent smoke filling the room. As the smoke swirled around Amelia, a low hiss filled the air. Her body writhed in protest, her screams morphing into pained shrieks. But the glow in her eyes flickered, a flicker of recognition struggling to break through the darkness. "Ethan," she rasped, her voice weak and distorted. "Help! Me!" Hope surged through me. The sage seemed to be working, weakening whatever hold the darkness had on her. I fanned the smoke closer, its acrid scent stinging my eyes but fueling my determination. "Hold on, Amelia," I yelled, my voice hoarse with exertion. "We're going to get you through this." The struggle continued, a brutal tug-of-war between the darkness and the remnants of the Amelia I knew. The room grew thick with smoke, the air heavy with the stench of burning sage and a cloying, unnatural sweetness. Then, with a final ear-splitting shriek, Amelia went limp. The unnatural glow in her eyes vanished, replaced by a vacant emptiness. Her body lay still, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost knocked me off my feet. But it was a cautious relief, tinged with a chilling uncertainty. Had I saved Amelia, or had I merely pushed the darkness back into the recesses of her mind, waiting for the opportune moment to resurface? Dawn peeked through the grimy window panes, casting a sickly yellow glow on the ransacked room. The sage had burnt itself out, leaving behind a lingering scent of ash and despair. Amelia lay unconscious on the bed, her face pale and drawn, a stark contrast to the wild thrashing of the night before. Exhaustion weighed heavily on me, every muscle screaming in protest. But sleep was a distant luxury. Fear, like a cold hand, gripped my heart. Had the cleansing ritual truly banished the darkness, or had it merely wounded the entity, buying us a temporary reprieve? The silence in the room stretched on, heavy and oppressive. Then a faint moan broke the tension. Amelia stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. Relief flooded me, washing away the fatigue for a moment. "Amelia," I whispered, leaning closer to the bed. Her eyes focused on me slowly, recognition flickering across her face. But the spark of warmth I used to see in them was replaced by a dull pain, a haunted emptiness. "What happened?" she croaked, her voice dry and raspy. "It was bad," I admitted, hesitantly recounting the events of the night. The terror in her eyes mirrored my own as I described the battle, the shrieks, the unnatural glow. When I finished, she closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "There's something inside me," she whispered, her voice barely a tremor. "Something dark and cold. I can feel it lurking in the shadows." The confirmation sent chills down my spine. The ritual may have weakened the entity, but it hadn't eradicated it. Amelia was a living battleground, and I knew I couldn't leave her alone to fight this war. "We'll get rid of it," I declared, my voice firmer than I felt. "Together." But a flicker of doubt clouded my eyes. How could I help her? The occult bookstore was a starting point, but it felt woefully inadequate against the monstrous force I had encountered. "There has to be more we can do," Amelia rasped, a flicker of defiance igniting in her hollow eyes. "We can't just sit here and wait for it to take over." Her words sparked an idea in the back of my mind, a desperate gamble born from love and fear. "What if," I began hesitantly, "what if there's a way to fight fire with fire?" Amelia's brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "We captured the darkness," I explained, my voice gaining conviction. "We find a way to pull it out of you, to trap it in something tangible." "But how?" I stared at her, the echo of her question hanging heavy in the air. The answer remained elusive, but the seed of a desperate plan had been sown. I would need to delve deeper into the occult, to find a way to not just banish the darkness, but to contain it, to trap it in a form that wouldn't endanger Amelia or anyone else. The darkroom, silent and dormant for weeks, called to me with a morbid allure. But this time, I wouldn't be capturing emotions on film. This time, I'd be seeking to capture a nightmare, to bind darkness itself within the confines of a photograph. A desperate last resort in a fight for the woman I loved. The familiar scent of chemicals felt less suffocating now, more like the acrid tang of battle lines drawn. Stepping back into the darkroom, I wasn't a photographer seeking beauty, but a warrior wielding light against an unseen foe. Days blurred into nights as I devoured the cryptic texts from the occult bookstore. Rituals designed to bind demons, banish malevolent spirits, all dance before my eyes, a labyrinth of symbols and incantations. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every rustle outside, every creak of the floorboard, sent shivers down my spine, a constant reminder of the darkness lurking within Amelia. Finally, a glimmer surfaced, a ritual from an obscure grimoire, a risky maneuver that spoke of capturing an entity's essence in a photograph. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only hope I had. "Amelia," I said one evening, my voice strained with exhaustion and trepidation, "I think I found something." She sat by the window, her face pale and gaunt, but her eyes held a flicker of the old fire. "What is it?" I explained the ritual, the dangers involved, the possibility of failure. As I spoke, a flicker of fear crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by a steely resolve. "We have to try," she said, her voice firm. "I won't let this thing control me anymore." The next day, we set up the elaborate ritual in the center of the room. Mirrors lined the walls, reflecting Amelia's image infinitely. Candles, imbued with strange symbols, cast flickering shadows that danced across the ceiling. In the center, the camera sat on a tripod, its lens a hungry eye waiting to devour the darkness. Amelia sat in the heart of the circle, her face etched with a mixture of fear and determination. Taking a deep breath, I began to chant the archaic words from the grimoire, their guttural sounds resonating in the small room. The air crackled with unseen energy. The candles flickered wildly, their flames twisting into grotesque shapes. A low growl emanated from Amelia, her body contorting unnaturally. Fear threatened to paralyze me, but the image of Amelia, her eyes filled with silent pleas for help, spurred me on. The chant reached its crescendo, and I slammed my hand down on the shutter release. A blinding white light engulfed the room, followed by an ear-splitting crash as a mirror shattered. Silence descended, thick and heavy. We stood there, chests heaving, not daring to breathe. Slowly, the light from the developing tray illuminated the photograph. Instead of Amelia's image, a swirling vortex of inky blackness stared back at us, its edges tinged with a faint, malevolent glow. A choked gasp escaped Amelia's lips. It wasn't gone, but it was contained, trapped within the confines of the photograph. The entity's power seemed diminished, its malevolent energy muted. Relief washed over me, a tidal wave threatening to drown me, but a sliver of unease remained. The ritual had worked, but for how long? And what would we do with the photograph? A tangible embodiment of the darkness we had ripped from Amelia. The captured darkness hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the battle won, and the war far from over. The photograph sat on the table, a swirling vortex of inky blackness, a stark contrast to the vibrant world outside. Amelia stared at it with a mixture of relief and unease. "It's beautiful, in a terrifying way," she whispered, her voice barely a tremor. "Beautiful," I echoed, surprised by her choice of words. "It's the darkness I felt, given form," she explained. "It's grotesque, but acknowledging it, seeing it trapped here, somehow feels empowering." A flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps facing the darkness head-on, confronting its raw essence, was the first step towards truly vanquishing it. But the question remained, what to do with it? Days turned into weeks, the photograph remaining its silent vigil on the table. Researching the grimoire, I found no mention of disposing of a captured entity. It spoke of banishing, binding, but never of destroying. Maybe we need help, Amelia suggested one evening, her voice tinged with concern. Someone who understands these things better. The thought of returning to the occult bookstore filled me with apprehension. But the alternative, living with the constant threat of the entity breaking free, was worse. The woman at the bookstore listened intently to my tale, her eyes widening with surprise as I recounted the ritual and its outcome. "A bold move," she finally said, her voice raspy with age. "But a risky one. The darkness can't be destroyed, only contained or redirected." Redirected, I repeated, the words sparking a flicker of an idea in my mind. "There are ancient practices," she continued, a knowing glint in her eyes, of channeling negative energy for good, transforming it into something positive like a shield against future attacks. Hope surged through me. Perhaps this was the answer. Perhaps, by channeling the captured darkness, we could not only weaken it but also use its own power to create a safeguard for Amelia. The following days were a blur of research and preparation. The woman from the bookstore guided me, outlining a complex ritual designed to transform the entity's essence. It was a delicate operation, fraught with risk, but the potential reward was immense. As we performed the ritual, the air crackled with unseen energy. The photograph on the table pulsed with a faint black light. Sweat beaded on my forehead, a mixture of fear and determination, fueling my movements. Finally, with a blinding flash of light, the ritual reached its climax. Silence descended. We held our breath, unsure of the outcome. Slowly, the light faded, revealing the photograph on the table. The swirling darkness was gone, replaced by a faint, swirling white mist. Amelia picked up the photograph, a hesitant smile playing on her lips. "It's different," she said. "It feels peaceful." Relief washed over me, a wave of exhaustion following close behind. The darkness hadn't been destroyed, but it had been reshaped, its essence turned towards protecting Amelia, a constant reminder of the battle fought and the strength found within. As we embraced, the photograph tucked safely away, a new beginning stretched before us. The scars of the ordeal remained, but so did a newfound resilience. And in the quiet of the evening, with Amelia's hand in mine, I finally allowed myself to believe that the darkness might have been captured, but the light, the love we shared, would forever prevail. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the dust motes dancing in the air. The darkroom, once a refuge from reality, now felt strangely sterile. The photo developing trays stood empty, a testament to the shift in my priorities. Amelia sat on the stool by the window, a book in her lap, a faint smile playing on her lips. The vibrant light that had returned to her eyes was the most beautiful sight I could have ever wished for. Ready to face the world, I teased, walking over to her and placing a kiss on her forehead. She laughed, a sound that still filled me with an almost ridiculous amount of joy. "As ready as I'll ever be." We stepped outside, hand in hand, the familiar sights and sounds of the city no longer muted by fear. Everywhere I looked, I saw beauty, in the vibrant flowers blooming in a window box, in the laughter of children playing in the park, in the quiet conversations exchanged on a crowded sidewalk. "You know," Amelia said, her voice soft, "I finally understand what you meant all those weeks ago." I stopped walking, a quizzical look on my face. "What do you mean?" "About capturing emotions," she explained. "It's not just about sadness or anger. It's about capturing the essence of life, the beauty and the struggle that coexist within us all." A smile spread across my face. The darkness I'd sought to capture had led me down a terrifying path, but it had also led me to a deeper understanding of the human condition. And more importantly, it had shown me the power of love, of facing adversity together. Maybe, I suggested, picking up a camera that hung forgotten on my shoulder, we can capture some of that beauty today. Amelia's eyes sparkled with excitement. I'd like that, she agreed. Let's start with this one. She pointed towards a young couple embracing on a park bench, their faces radiating pure joy. As I raised the camera to my eye, a sense of purpose washed over me. This wasn't just about capturing an image. It was about capturing a moment, a story, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The click of the shutter echoed in the air, a new chapter beginning. The darkness might still lurk in the corners, but the light, I knew for certain, would forever shine brighter. Months had passed, and the once omnipresent fear had become a distant memory. The photograph, now encased in a silver locket nestled against Amelia's heart, served as a constant reminder of the battle fought and won. My photography, too, had undergone a transformation. Gone was the sterile pursuit of capturing raw emotions in their bleakest forms. Instead, my lens focused on the everyday miracles, a child's laughter echoing through a park, the quiet strength etched on an old woman's face, the way sunlight danced on a single perfect raindrop. One sunny afternoon, we found ourselves at a bustling street fair. The air vibrated with music and laughter, a kaleidoscope of sights and sounds enveloping us. As I raised my camera to capture a group of children chasing pigeons, a voice startled me. "Excuse me, are you the photographer?" A young woman stood before me, her eyes filled with a nervous excitement. "Yes, I am," I replied, lowering the camera. "My name is Sarah," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. I saw your work online. The photos you take, they capture something special, a kind of light I haven't seen before." A blush crept up Amelia's neck, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "Thank you," I mumbled, surprised by the woman's words. "I was hoping," Sarah continued, her voice gaining confidence, "that you might be able to take a photo of my grandmother. She's not been well, and I just want to capture her smile before." Her voice trailed off, and a lump formed in my throat. Taking a deep breath, I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Of course," I said, my voice firm. "Lead the way." We found Sarah's grandmother sitting on a park bench, sunlight dappling her wrinkled face. A faint smile played on her lips, but a shadow of sadness lurked in her eyes. As I knelt before her, Sarah whispered a few encouraging words. Slowly, the grandmother's smile widened, genuine warmth replacing the initial apprehension. Click. The shutter captured the moment. A woman, weathered by time but radiating an inner strength, a bond between granddaughter and grandmother that transcended words. Looking at the image on the camera screen, a wave of emotion washed over me. It wasn't just a photo, it was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a celebration of the light that shone even in the face of hardship. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. That's exactly how I remember her. As we walked away, Amelia squeezed my hand. "You see," she said, her voice filled with pride, "you capture the light now. The beauty that exists even in the darkest of times." I smiled, gazing at the bustling scene around us. The pursuit of darkness had led me to an even deeper understanding of light. And in capturing the light, the stories of everyday people, I had finally found my true purpose. The darkness might be a part of us, but it would never extinguish the radiant spirit that burned within.